Part 1, Winding the Warp. The warp thread that you'll want to use needs to be very strong, something that's going to take a lot of stretching. So I like to use a very durable cotton. What you'll do is tie on the first peg of your loom, make a double knot. Then you're going to stretch tightly to the opposite peg. Pull down, pulling tightly at every turn. The tension is very important here because the tension of the warp determines the tension of the entire weaving. So what you're looking for is something that can easily bounce a penny off of it, let's say. You'll keep going around each peg, pulling tightly and testing the tension as you go. It's important to tie on and tie off on the same side, which is why the looms are labeled. And the reason for that is that it will make things a lot easier when you're finished with your weaving and you're taking it off of the loom. The top will be completely bound by these loops, and the bottom will be cut and tied together. So take your time in doing this to really create the tension that we're looking for. Another thing to think about with your warp is creating some color differences in the warp. For this, I'm just going to use this gray. But let's say I had a patch of pink here, a patch of yellow here, a patch of black here. That will change the way that my weaving looks. But for now, we're just using gray. There's lots of different variations, lots of things you can do with the warp. Although if you do choose to change color, I recommend using the same weight of yarn in different colors. This is another good test. You can strum it like a guitar. That's pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and skip the very last peg here because we want to tie on and tie off on the same side. And if I went like this to the top and incorporated that last peg, then my knots would be on different sides. So we're just going to skip the last peg, give it a good stretch, and tie off. I'm going to cut it. Make a double knot around that last peg. Generally speaking, the last warp thread will be the least secure. So if you wanted to reinforce it with some tape on the back of your loom, you can pull tight and reinforce it with some tape. That's always an option as well. Okay, now we're ready to weave.